Greetings, my name is Kerry and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing you the second in my series of videos of indie intros to introduce you to some of my favourite independent publishers and some of the books that they publish. And today it's quite a big one. It's actually probably the biggest and most successful indie publisher in the UK, called Bloomsbury. Yeah, they're really well established and they have offices in various countries and own a number of imprints as well, but they're still classed as an independent publisher. They're not one of the big five publishing houses. For those of you unfamiliar with the series, this is only the second one. So in these videos I'm going to give a bit of a history of the publisher and some of their most famous books that they are responsible for publishing in the UK. And because of how publishing works, they may not be published by the same publishing company in other countries, or they may not be published by indies in other countries. So this is sort of quite UK centric. Then I'm going to give a few recommendations of books that I've enjoyed by this particular publisher. This is easy enough for the big independent publishers, which last month with Canongate, so I'll link to that video if you haven't seen it, and this month Bloomsbury. We're going to start getting into less prolific, less well-known publishers in the next couple of months, so there'll be some slightly rarer books that hopefully you will enjoy picking up and reading. So a little bit of the history of Bloomsbury. They were founded in 1986 and they are based in London, and I think that's where the name comes from. They're sort of named after the Bloomsbury group, who were the literary group in the early 20th century that lived in that particular area of London where the publisher is now based. They publish a really wide range of stuff, so they publish fiction and non-fiction. They publish children and adult books and a range of genres as well. They also have a division specifically for academic and professional publishing, which is quite successful for them. They also have acquired a large number of smaller companies and imprints, so if you look on their Wikipedia page it does list all these different imprints, and there were too many for me to want to list them all here. As I mentioned, they have branches in various different countries around the world, including America and I think Australia, so they have quite a wide reach as an independent publisher. They're also in the top 10 wealthiest publishing companies in the UK or something. I've probably got that name of that list just slightly wrong, but they are really well known. Part of the reason they have been so successful and so well known, and we're moving into sort of the famous things that they've published here, and I didn't know this until I actually started researching for this video, but they are responsible for publishing the Harry Potter books. So they were the ones that gave J.K. Rowling her big break. They were the ones that picked up the series after loads of other companies have rejected it, and they are the ones that have made it into the success that it is today. And that just shows why indie publishers are so important, because authors that are rejected by the big five companies or by their imprints are often picked up by indie publishers who are more willing to take a risk on books that are maybe less obviously going to be popular to the public. And they played and they won in this case, because the Harry Potter series, I mean, I don't personally like them that much. Please keep watching. But they are hugely successful, and just goes to show what a fickle industry publishing is, but also why indies are so important. I mean, you don't need me to tell you what the Harry Potter series are about, because everyone knows, and it's a worldwide name and it's been so successful, and that's because this publisher took a chance on it, and that is what has really raised their profile as a company. I think it's been really key to their success as a publisher. Other books that you've probably heard of if you are at all into BookTube and you follow lots of BookTube channels, you will have heard of this next series as well, which is the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J Maas. They are currently published by Bloomsbury in the UK, which again I didn't know, and again they're not books that I've actually read myself, but I hear people talking about them all the time, and again I didn't realise until I made this video that Bloomsbury published them too, so that's really cool. But in terms of other famous books that have been really quite key for Bloomsbury as well, or at least the ones that I thought were quite, they were the original publishers of The English Patient by, I'm going to say this wrong, Michael Ondaatje. I'm really sorry if I mangled that name. I meant to look up how to pronounce it before I made this video and I forgot. So that was a Man Booker Prize winner, and it was also in 2018 when they had the anniversary of the Man Booker Prize. This was the Golden Man Booker Prize winner, so it was voted the best book out of all the books that have won the Booker Prize, and that was originally published in the UK by Bloomsbury. Likewise, there are lots of popular authors that their books are now published by lots of different publishers, but one author who seems to have a very close relationship with Bloomsbury as a publisher is Margaret Atwood, and they have produced special edition copies of a lot of her books, which are really, really beautiful. I've read a couple of her books and I did quite enjoy them. If I was planning to buy copies, I would probably go for the Bloomsbury special edition ones because they are so beautiful. I read The Handmaid's Tale a really long time ago and I haven't decided if I want to reread it or not yet. But I read Alias Grace a couple of years ago and really enjoyed that. So yeah, if I ever want to buy any Margaret Atwood books, I would probably seek out those Bloomsbury special editions. And a more recent book that has been, again, talked about quite a lot in book blogging and booktube circles is Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race by Rennie O Lodge. And again, that's not one I've read myself, but I've heard so many good things about it, and it's definitely one that I want to check out soon. Another really famous book that they are responsible for publishing is The Kite by Khaled Hosseini, which I actually have here somewhere. Oh, there it is. Where have I left the books? The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini, and they have also published his more recent books as well. This again was hugely successful when it came out, has since been made into a film as well. It's a really powerful story if you haven't read it, and we're sort of moving slightly into my recommendations section here. When I first read this book, I loved it so much that when my friend asked to borrow it, I said she could keep it because it was such a good book, and then I went out and bought myself another copy because it's so beautiful. And again, it's been quite a long time since I've read it and I do want to reread it again soon. But it was really eye-opening for me as I read it in my late teens, sort of a window into a different world, into a situation in Afghanistan and sort of the conflict going on there at the time, and it was really, really powerful. Yeah, so really do highly recommend this one. If you haven't checked out this book, please do. It is just beautiful, beautifully written as well, and I've been meaning to get onto some of Khaled Hosseini's other books as well. And just before I go into the rest of my recommendations, I will just say I also like to talk about if the publisher has won any awards, and according to their website they have won all major literary awards for adult and children's literature, so they are hugely successful as a publisher. And I was going to list some of the things that some of their books have won, but there were just so many that I couldn't be bothered. But just know that it's worth noting that they are highly successful as a publisher. They publish books that people love, both in the popular realm and also in the literary criticism realm. Like, they are regularly winning awards as a publisher, or the books that they publish are winning awards regularly. A couple more recommendations for you. One of my highest recommendations for this publisher is one of my favourite books of this year so far. This is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. You'll have heard this talked a lot about on BookTube because it is a recent release and it's been hugely popular. It is a bit of a weighty, heavy book, but it doesn't feel like it when you're reading it. Like, I swept through this book so quickly. I read it in just over a week and it's beautiful. It's a epic fantasy featuring dragons, and not just your regular fire-breathing dragons but also water dragons as well, which was beautiful. It's set across different countries and cultures. There's different central characters. There's LGBTQIA plus rep. There's just so much in this book and it's so good. And if you haven't picked it up yet, or if you've been intimidated by the size of it, just give it a go. Even if you don't love fantasy, I would say give it a try. I would say this is a really good gateway book into fantasy. Just the characters in it are so well written and the writing style is beautiful, and I found very little that I could criticise in this book. So if you haven't checked this one out yet, go do it. A couple of books that I talk about quite regularly on this channel. You will not be surprised, although you might be, because you might not have known that they were published by Bloomsbury. But anyway, these are the Austenland books, which until I looked at my shelves and was trying to pull out ones published by Bloomsbury, I was like, I hadn't realised these were published by Bloomsbury, but that they are. So these are, how to explain them? These are novels about a Jane Austen themed holiday resort in the UK where you go to get the Jane Austen experience. So it's like you become a heroine in a Jane Austen novel for the length of your stay on your holiday. The first one focuses on a character called Jane who sort of accidentally books herself the cheap package and is not quite having the experience that she would expect. She's very Jane Austen obsessed, and it's kind of she's trying to get it out of her system really with this one final big experience. And it's so funny and really cleverly written, and it's also been made into a film which is hilarious. It's a little bit different to the book, but it's one of my favourite films. It's so funny. And then Midnight in Austenland is kind of more based, so this one's more based on Pride and Prejudice, this one is more based on Northanger Abbey, so there's sort of a mystery element, there's a slightly shady character, and there's like trying to figure out, there's something a bit gothic mystery type, sort of like the idea of Northanger Abbey, where there's like a mystery in the house and the main character Charlotte is trying to figure it out and also figure out her love life. She's recently separated from her husband and is trying to sort of get over that situation. So again, really funny, really enjoyable. There was actually a moment when I was reading this book where I had to put the book down because I was laughing so much. I was reading it in the bath and I was scared I was going to drop it because I was shaking with laughter, so I actually had to put the book down and get the laughter out of my system. So really, really, really love these books. If you need a bit of a laugh and you love Jane Austen, I really recommend these ones. So one last book that I'm going to recommend to sort of show the range of the types of things they publish. This book is called The Memory of Love by Aminatta Forna. This is set in Sierra Leone. I read it quite a while ago, so I don't entirely remember the story brilliantly, but I remember being so encaptured by the setting. I just thought it was beautifully written. So this is one of those books, I don't know if you've ever had the experience. This happened, I read this book before I started using Goodreads and really wanted to reread it, but for the longest time I couldn't remember what it was called or who wrote it. I just remembered that the cover looked a little bit like this and that it was set in Sierra Leone in a hospital, and that one of the main characters was a British doctor working out there, and then there was also a doctor from Sierra Leone, and I couldn't really remember much else about it. And then I decided to do the Read Around the World challenge, which you'll have heard me talk about a few times, and I was looking through the list of books that other people had read towards the challenge, and I saw this title, The Memory of Love, and I was like, that sounds familiar, and I looked it up on Goodreads and I was like, that's the book. So I straight away bought it, meaning to reread it, and actually haven't quite got around to rereading it yet, but I remember it being really beautiful and one that I liked enough that I did actually work quite hard to try and find out what it was called. So that is that one. That is all for today, and thank you for watching. Hopefully you all have gleaned a few recommendations of books from another independent publisher. As I mentioned, we're going to start moving into sort of some less well-known publishers next month, so looking forward to that. Yeah, so let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them, or if you've got any other recommendations of books from indie publishers that you think I should check out. Also going to do a little plug for the Ninja Book Club, which is returning in June. I can't remember off the top of my head the title of the first book, so I'm going to link to the Ninja Book Club website so that you can find out and maybe sign up to that, because it's really good fun. I've missed it in the 6 months that it's been on hiatus, so I'm really looking forward to that coming back, and hopefully you might enjoy that too. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye!